Hello, everyone. Welcome to September's podcast. And this month we are featuring Ferdinand Mels. Welcome, Ferd. We're
Hi.
so grateful to have you here.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. And on today's live podcast, we are going to be diving into all of the so beautiful, empowering books that Ferd has created over the last, how many years would you say, Ferd, now?
Uh, it's been about 20 years, but the last year has been really intense. So it's,
So we're going to dive into these novels, these books, these alchemy coloring books, all of that has been created through Ferdinand Mel's channel as well as his spirit fractals. And his spirit fractals are in part how I met Ferd. And I would love to share a little of how Ferd and I connected in through his wife, actually, through his wife, Jennifer, who is also such an incredible woman who is so deeply connected in and to her own personal channel. And Ferd, it's okay to share a little backstory, yeah?
yep, yep, perfect. Thank you.
So when I met Jennifer, I don't even know how many years ago now, we were doing an Akashic reading. And as we dipped down to her Akashic fields, I kept getting guided to Ferd and Jen's basement. And I kept seeing a box down there full of books. And I was like, what are these books? Why do your guides keep showing me these books? What is this? And Jen starts laughing and she expressed how Ferd had created these spirit fractals. And she wrote I guess, almost like an oracle. Can I say oracle, Ferd? Is that a good way to
Yep,
put it? Yeah,
yep.
for each spirit fractal. And so there was a big giggle, and I communicated how her guides were like, it's time. And through meeting Jen in that Akashic session, I was divinely guided to Ferd, and I've been connecting in with Jen and Ferd ever since. And Ferd, with your guidance, I'd love to talk a little bit about what those spirit fractals are, so our live guests joining in know what this is.
Yeah. I guess in a really short sense, it would be a soul's portrait. But it all started 1998. Jen and I were doing master alignment training down in the US. And during the advanced session, the practitioner just out of nowhere said, "You're working with fractals." And at that point, I instantly knew exactly what the guides at the time were referring to. And that's when it started. So this was when fractals were really not that common a word. I just happened to have a program on my computer at the time that I was playing with that was just for fractals, and it had absolutely no use at all other than it was pretty. And so that just got me starting to play with it. And as I played with the fractals, it became intuitive. And I realized that, there was a lot of connected with guides and through meditation and prayer. It just became a powerful tool to really show, uh, I guess, almost like a personal um, oracle card. I guess it's a snapshot of a soul, like a soul portrait. And then Jennifer, with her intuitive writing, would actually bring through the message for the person. And it just over time just evolved and evolved and evolved. And then our children came along, and I kind of backburnered the whole process for quite a while, just because we had committed to attachment parenting, and that really became our focus for quite a few years. And it wasn't until we went down to the Dominican last year, and we did this retreat, and it was a lot of breath work and a lot of introspection. And the thing I always struggled with the fractals was I didn't know really how to market it or what it meant. I really didn't understand the full picture. And it was during that retreat in the Dominican that everything just crystallized. And I just at that point just knew everything just unfolded. It's and so now the fractals have become they've evolved so much. And like since we did that book, they are so different. And fractals now have become such a main, you hear it used all the time. It's become such a common expression. It's and I mean, for me now, I see the whole universe as a fractal. Like we are, we are points in that fractal of source. So we're constantly, it would just, yeah, it's hard to put to words, but for me, it's a very clear vision. Yeah, so now it's when we came back from the Dominican, I was doing a lot of. I decided my first um, sort of goal was to produce an Oracle deck, which is it's produced. I'm just working on actually writing the instructions in the book, and then I'll probably crowdfund that to get that going. But doing so many, like I was doing 3 or 4 fractals a day, and so I was in a constant state of meditation, constant prayer, and that whole process transformed me without me even realizing it. And that's how this whole journey of writing the books really began. It was through that transformation of sort of transforming myself. I think I talk about it in the Lucid Dreamer. I created another book called Shaa'Vihra, which is a light language, and it's the reason that whole book came about actually was I couldn't sleep one night. Every time I went to go to sleep, I kept getting this vision of light going from the third eye to the heart, and I literally couldn't sleep. So I just got up in the middle of the night and just the thing that I guess my first obstacle was to name it. There wasn't really a name that I knew of for just that whole process from connecting your third eye, bridging the two together. And Shaa'Vihra was the name that came up, and that just exploded into a whole language. And I stayed up, almost 24/7 for weeks, and it just poured through me. And that was basically the first thing that launched me into this whole journey. It's so
Wow.
it's been wild. Like the last year feels like 10, but I love it. I mean, I haven't it's been an awesome journey.
Wow.
I received Ferd Kara's story. There was one point in the breath work, I feel like his crack open. I remember him holding the tree. Do you remember this, Ferd?
Yeah.
Holding on, like in the breath work, and you could feel the amplification. And I feel like that moment just cracked.
It was actually a cactus.
Oh, wow.
Whatever the tree was. Yeah, a little prickly.
Yeah.
I have a
Oh.
question. So just because I'm familiar with what fractals are, like kind of, but can you explain so if it's the soul's like snapshot, which means that like I have my own fractal, you have your own fractal, Britt has her, like everybody has their own fractal, but then from my understanding, it all kind of like fractals into like, universal consciousness or, the cosmos, like it all kind of weaves into one. Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, on a big scale, yes.
Yeah,
We're all unique expressions of that one,
right. So like
universal
this
fractal.
unique, like energetic signature would be like my own fractal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And then of course that's all woven with all your experiences, that would be unique, like your own unique frequency and color, light, right? That's all. So we're all part of the one source, one fractal, but we're all unique expressions of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
Wow, so powerful. I just want to say so what I really love, like, because I just received your books, which, and I was looking, I have two different books. I have the Lucid Dreamer, and then I have, what was the other one? The
the
Quantum.
Quantum Reaper.
Thank
Quantum
you.
Weaver. Yeah.
And so I was like really like looking like which one to start with first. And I started with the Lucid Dreamer. And one of the first lines I read is just like I actually laughed out loud because me and I with Blue Lotus, like our whole intention and everything that we want to anchor into is that the time for outsourcing our healing is complete. So that's what we want to really like in the frequency we want to bring into Blue Lotus. And the first thing I read, like literally second paragraph, we've spent too long looking outward. Reality isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. Your frequency is the pen. It was like, this is like exactly like in coherence with everything that Britt and I have really been like coming home to over the past year as well. So I'd love for you, if you feel open to it, can you just explain what you mean by reality isn't happening to you, it's happening through you.
Yeah. I mean, I firmly believe that we create our reality through our frequency. The thoughts play a huge role, but it's really our underlying frequency that I've actually been spending a lot of time researching on DNA, and science now knows that we actually emit light at a cellular level, and our DNA is, I call it a transceiver. So it's a transmitter and a receiver. So our DNA, it's energetically sending out signals. So if we walk into a room, we'll have already sent signals into that room before we even arrive there. So and you'll see that, at parties, all of a sudden one person will walk in and everybody's heads turn. It's like everybody kind of anticipated that energy coming into the room. And at the same time, we also receive outside input. So in that sense, we create the world we experience. And a lot of that means also taking ownership for what we're experiencing. So, we create it, therefore we can also change it. And I think at Quantum Weaver, it's really about choosing our timelines, like choosing what we want to express and how we want to shift our reality. So does that help?
It does. And then, so how do we shift our reality? If this idea is in fact how we create, like, so the universe or our external world responds to what within us?
To our frequency.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the most profound shift that we make is through our frequency. So if we're wanting peace and we're constantly giving off a frequency of separation or judgment, or it's really hard to live in. It's hard to be cohesive when we're all fractured, or our frequency is not a clean. I call it tone of origin. It's our original tone, and it's really, so how do we change that frequency? A lot of that's through meditation, like going within, and that's where the whole going within. That's really where that's where you can make change in your frequency. And I use meditation. I use Shaa'Vihra because the reason I use that is because it's not a language of communication. It's just a language purely of spirit. So it's designed as a Fibonacci sequence, and it's the whole language is not designed to be understood, but it's a frequency you're creating that resonates within the body. So and sound will have a massive impact because it is a wave or a frequency that can create ripple effects. And that changes your cells on a cellular level, and then it changes what you're broadcasting. So it's
So fascinating.
One of my favorite quotes, sorry, that, and I think, Kara, I've said this in a few of our Blue Lotus, and I've tagged you in that, Ferd, where it's like, you can say all the affirmations in the world you want to say, but the universe can read through it, basically. If you're not vibrating from that coherence, if you are not in that space of embodiment within your resonance, you're not going to attract what you're trying to manifest, right?
Right.
And you use that quote, I mean, it's not 100% how you say it, but I know in the Quantum Weaver, there's quite a few spaces where you speak to that, and it really registers, right? Because it just shows how we are, in essence, responsible for our creation, and
Right.
how we want to align our frequency or choose to embody our frequency with what we are either receiving or creating. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I find as society, we give very little time to that self-nurturing. It's if I look at the years, and I see it quite often now because both our kids are competing in rowing at a varsity level, and that was one of my sports I did for 8 years, where I was competing, and we're training twice a day, every day. And the reason for that was to build muscle memory. And we don't do that for ourselves. It's like I see it very much as a commitment to yourself to change your frequency. It takes effort, it takes training, it takes practice to build that. Rather than muscle memory, it's building that base frequency. So if you want to change to abundance, you need to constantly work on that frequency of abundance.
yes,
It's
it's devotion.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
And in that devotion, it's like just because it doesn't pan out the way you want it to, or it doesn't happen the first time, it's you don't give up, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things in our culture. We want things so fast, right?
Yeah,
Give it to me
yeah,
now. So then when things go our way, it's great. But when they don't, those are the moments, right, in our quantum or our fractal where we really have to work to redirect that energy. Would you say that you speak to that in the Quantum Weaver?
yeah. And sometimes we also don't see the whole picture necessarily, right? So sometimes when we feel like we're, kind of butting our heads against the wall, it's actually not necessarily the right path for us, right? And if we're listening to ego, and it can be very subtle and tricky, we that wall that's in front of us is actually a good thing, and we just have to step back and then really feel what resonates and make sure it is the right path, right? It's
Mhm.
And I found the more you dedicate to it, it does actually start to accelerate. There's a point at which it does start, because your frequency now is becoming more and more coherent and less fractured. So as it becomes one voice, it becomes a lot more powerful rather than going off in, 20, 30, 50, 100 directions, right? So
I was going to say
It
that
becomes
too,
more.
like, the thing is that if we want to really come into, our, like, more of an organic resonance or frequency of that is our fractal, we'll say, with that intention then means that we have to, really meet all of the aspects that we've kind of acquired from life conditions, society conditions, all of these attachments that we have. Like, I think that's why people, like, going back to what Britt said, like, people kind of like not give up, but they're like, it's not for the faint of heart when you start a journey of, like, really getting to know yourself, because you have to look at aspects that you've been really attached to. It's like this, like, idea of willpower, and like, and even, the whole idea around manifestation and affirmations, and, like, like willing something into happening. Like, that's a pretty, like, that's actually not how it works, but we've all been sort of conditioned. It's like, keep your eye on the prize, basically. And I
yeah,
think that we can keep our eye on the prize, but really the prize is like whatever that frequency is inside that will then, I guess, like, bring things into more of like resonance or attract, um in more of an organic way, rather than the ego forcing something to happen. Does that?
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and there's a lot of other factors at play too. Like, free will, not imposing on anybody else's free will. That's one of the things that, for me, has come up as being so important. Like, if we all honored everybody else's free will, it's hard to do harm. And sometimes when we have goals and objectives, if we're just goal focused, there's a lot of things that could happen that we're not aware of, right? So, it's one of the. I remember having a discussion with one of my relatives, and it was the whole Ukraine-Russia conflict. And my view was, it doesn't make sense to me to keep sending money for arms and just funding this huge defensive system, because the defense is only necessary in if you're anticipating war. Rather it was, my vision is to just focus on peace and what peace feels like, and holding that frequency and that vibration, instead of being defensive and ready for war, which is it's actually war. And that's something I think as a planet we've never really done. We've never all held that vision of peace and unity and love as a cohesive state. And we've done a lot of other things, but we still have wars all over the place. So I don't know if it works. Yeah.
Think sometimes that
Mhm.
people, like, when, because I feel the same way, and anytime I bring that up, I feel like sometimes I'm very dismissed, and that's like a very naive thing to think about, but it and I mean, of like choosing to hold peace and get to the places where I can feel peace within myself, to therefore, like you said, if the DNA is transceivers, like, if we're able to, like, transmit, and if everybody, it's like where there's all these monks praying for the same thing, it shows that the quantum field, like, the frequencies elevate. So, um I wonder how we can, and I'd love your like to hear your perspective on this, like how we can actually work to stop fighting for peace and begin to, you know, anchor it in as more of a collective. Like, how can we shift that understanding? You know, what would you know, in your like utopian world, what would that, how would that happen?
I think the starting point is dropping judgment. Yeah, it's the minute we separate, it's not cohesive, right? It's now it becomes divisional. And I mean, really, it's realizing that we're all part of the same source. We're all fractals of that original source. You know, so we're unique, but we're still all the same, right? And I mean, having, you know, war on the planet is kind of like your body fighting itself. You know, and we see that. I mean, to me, that's um, really that's what tumors are. You know, I remember I had software on my computer. The software it never got carried over into the modern systems, but it allowed me to create 4D fractals. So this is a fourth dimensional fractal, and they would look like seashells. Like they were very organic, they were very fluid. It's just they weren't like a shell because they were in 4 dimensions. And I could actually take that and force it into a 3D fractal, and it looked like a tumor. You know, and I remember at the time thinking, wow, that's so interesting, right? It's because we're essentially 3D beings. You know, we're physically three-dimensional, but we have so many more dimensions running through us. You know, we have time, we have memory, we have ancestral. I mean, there's so much going through, and then we have access to higher dimensions. You know, so if all that just gets forced and we're just thinking from ego and not looking at it from a different perspective, you know, it can have a very fractured outcome, right? So, and I think that's the key is looking at things really through eyes of love, right? Where rather than being separate, we're looking for things that unify and you know, things that are common that keep us together. So I don't know if that
I
helps.
feel I feel like that was such a powerful statement right there, Ferd, in relation to like the different Ds, right? 3D, 4D, 5D, you know, we can go all the way up or all the way even lower below the three, where in essence, we are all of them. And it's that presency of what we choose in what we are or where we are operating from within those spaces.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
yeah, I feel that too. And that also, you know, takes out any form of hierarchy or disconnect, or it's the recognition where all those pieces. So, what are we all choosing in that presency? We all can go to the highest D or we can all go to the lowest D. Where do we want to play, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen so much, you see so much of that online where people are talking about the Earth shifting to 5D. And I believe, I mean, we live in all those dimensions all the time. You know, it's like the Earth is all those dimensions already. You know, the difference is what are we aware of, right? And it's up to us. Like there's nobody's going to save. I don't believe anybody's going to save. There's no savior. There's no free ride. It's up to us to do the work. It's up to us to go within and, you know, bring ourselves into coherence, bring ourselves into harmony. You know, and I mean, I catch myself. I think we talked about that the one time where I was, you know, it was only like a couple of weeks ago on the highway. Yeah, I just got frustrated because the guy in front of me wasn't going fast enough, you know, and I was just getting frustrated. And I just went, of course, right? And I just sent the person love and just let it all go. And he instantly moved over. And I just went, yeah. You know?
Well, and I think you said to that too, Ferd. It was so funny because it's like we say we want this 5D, but in the recognition of 5D quotation mark, it's like the manifestations happen so quick. So if we're not consciously aware, we're wanting 5D, but we're actually operating from 2D in our density, then what are we magnifying and attracting in that
Yeah.
moment, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if we really do want this acceleration or this evolution, that means becoming so present and so consciously aware of our human.
Right. Right. Yeah. Everything becomes that much more important, right? Because if you're manifesting rapidly, there isn't that buffer time to, you know, to go, oh, that's not what I wanted to think.
Exactly. Shoot. wrong direction, right? It's, well,
Yeah.
there's no wrong, but yeah, we're magnetizing and attracting so quickly is what it comes down to.
Yeah. I think, I mean, one of the things that's great about that is our frequency is separate from our thoughts, right? It's like we can have these, thoughts running through our mind, but that doesn't necessarily reflect our frequency. If our base frequency is quite coherent and love, it's our thoughts can go off rail, and we still have that frequency that's actually doing the manifesting. That's the signal we're sending out into the world. So it's.
But do you think though that like, okay, I think that I like this, but it also brings up a question for me because, but do you think that you have to do a lot of like, that you have to get to a place of a lot of like through a lot of inner work to get to that point where the baseline is always there for that frequency? Because, I can think about different times in my life if I've been ruminating in like, victim or scarcity mindset, then I certainly like, I feel like I was emitting that at that time. It wasn't until I kind of got a little bit further along in my own personal journey where I really began to understand that like who I am on a different, like, not a different level, but on a deeper level, that I could notice those nuances. But, do you think that thoughts create energy though as well and broadcast anything? Or do you feel that
They do. I mean, it's our thoughts are important. I think there's a buffer. It's not our thoughts don't immediately affect our frequency. Just, I mean, I really believe humans are innately good. Otherwise we really wouldn't have a planet left. I think 98% of 99% of the planet is really good. It's everyone's just when we have interactions with people, sometimes they go south, and it's because everyone's in their own, everyone has thoughts, pressures, and a million things going on. And I think when we take the time to actually step back and go, wow, and we really look to understand something, all those things, all those barriers drop. It's so, yeah, our thoughts do matter, but I know one of the things that came through when you're talking was when I channel, which I channel it's spirit, so I'm not channeling the ghost realm. It's all going up like that spirit energy. There's never any judgment. It's always pure love, admiration. And so all these events of trauma and different things never have a judgment. And I think that's so critical. We shouldn't judge ourselves either. It's like, a lot of the stuff that we go through is I mean, it's just an experience, and it's really about remembering who we really are. When you go through all those things and then you remember, oh yes, I am, a fractal of source. At that point, that's when all that starts to heal, because now you remember, okay, that's not really who I really am, right? Like we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and I think we forget that in day to day. Quite, it's easy to forget, and then you get caught up in the very physical stuff, which we have to because we have to still survive in a physical world. But we're far more than that. We're far greater than that. It's
that's a great mantra. I am a fractal of source.
yeah.
What a powerful statement, to come back to. Like even that, I could like, just even like you hearing you say that and then me saying to myself, it's like, wow, that almost like brings you right back into like a certain type of remembrance or like this inner knowing of like, oh yeah, like that is the truth, rather than whatever the mind wants to
Yeah.
tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's powerful in relation to the mind because we put so much focus, right? We've been taught to put so much focus on the mind. And I think what I really took from that too, what you were saying, it's like your frequency is who you are, like you just communicated in that. So it's like even when our mind takes us out, so maybe we can reflect into that, with that mantra. What are ways that we can reflect back into that remembrance within ourself to come back into that true alignment and frequency with who we are at that core? Will
Yeah.
be a good redirection, I guess is where I'm saying, because we all do. I mean, every single one of us, I do it, too. We all come to those spaces of where our mind goes out And sometimes it's quicker to come back than others.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest in that, to really come back into that centering point?
Um, I know if I catch myself completely off the rails, the first thing I do is I am love and I am loved. And I just send love out into the world. And I find that will anchor me quicker than anything. And a lot of times when I'm driving, I'll use traffic lights as a gauge. Like I've gone from A to B and had nothing but green lights. And I find if I'm really coherent, it just flows. I don't even think about it, and then all of a sudden I go, I haven't stopped in a long time. Like, and I've had other days where I'm just frustrated and, nothing like fractured. And I literally get, a 9-minute trip becomes literally 20, 25 minutes.
Right.
And it's just because I get every single red light, and then eventually you kind of go, really, again? Like, and it'll be the simplest things like a pedestrian light. It's like it's not even like, and all of a sudden one person had pushed it, and you're going, okay, this is something I'm out of coherence. Yeah.
Right.
So it's
The signs are there to draw you back in.
right,
Yeah, exactly.
right.
I was gonna say, like, what happens first? Like, you out of coherence first before you hit all of those like barriers? Or do the barriers happen and then you easily get out of coherence? Like, which I guess it's the same thing. You're out of coherence because if you were in full coherence, you wouldn't get frustrated necessarily by that. You would, I don't know. I was just thinking like, what comes first?
I think we create a lot more than we give ourselves credit.
Yeah.
So I think we end up out of coherence, and then things start to change. And now I become aware of it when things aren't coherent. So then I look at myself and go, okay, where within me am I not, I'm out of alignment, or not as coherent as I could be. And it's a good question because I think it's us that goes out of coherence first, and then it's like we've had my daughter and I a couple times we've been driving, and all of a sudden you get this ripple in the energy that is completely chaotic. And usually within 30 seconds, we'll come across a car accident after that happens. And so I've started to identify that now as, it's like almost like it feels almost like a field that's chaos. And so anybody that's not conscious of that energy is very victim to just running, and ending up in an accident, or which would be the result of that chaos, right? And I'm not sure on that if the accident caused. I feel like the energy was there before the accident, rather than the accident being the cause of the accident didn't cause that energy. There was a fracture in the energetic field, and then it just creates chaos within it. So
Which makes sense because then, and so let's just say, for example, if you were in a clear state and you felt anchored and grounded and present, if you drove into that chaotic field of energy, you might then be like, oh, you might notice the significant difference and then be like, okay, I need to be really aware. I need to slow down, or maybe I need to pull over, or, you can react a little bit differently. But if you're not grounded or connected to yourself, and if you enter a chaotic field, then who knows what could happen,
yeah, exactly. And I think the same thing happens to us on a cellular level, right? It's because our cells operate just like beings on the planet. They're just little beings within our body. And if everything's coherent, everything runs smoothly and all the energy moves. The minute we fall out of coherence, we end up with energy stuck in places, and trapped energy usually doesn't end well. It creates dis-ease, right? Like, it's not operating with ease. So I think there was a magazine that came out a long time ago, and it was a photographer that had started in space and then zoomed into the Earth, and it went into a beach, and there was a person lying in the beach, and then it zoomed into the body and went all the way down through the cellular levels, and it looked like space again. So it went from the macro into the micro, and it becomes identical. So the macro mirrors the micro. So I always keep that in the back of my mind too. It's so important to become coherent, just for your own health, just so everything is just running properly, right? So your cells get along and they're not fighting.
Literally. That's beautiful.
So you're not at war with yourself.
Right. Yeah. Because really that's what I see the world as a mirror. You know, it's reality is actually our mirror. It's a massive mirror that's always reflecting back to us what we are, like our vibration, our frequency, our thoughts. You know, it's always being mirrored to us. And it's so important to see all those little, you know, sometimes they're very subtle, sometimes they're not subtle. You know, sometimes it's literally a truck, that
Yep.
blindsides you, right? So
Wow.
So I'd love to touch in just to when you spoke about the energetic, we'll call them fragments, like within the grid. So like you said, when you're driving and all of a sudden you're feeling that energy. So someone, let's say, who's more open and more connected in their field, would that be a powerful space to come in? So if your energy gets totally shifted out and you're all of a sudden kind of stuck in this fragmented energy, but then you're affiliating it as your own, would you recommend a way for, I'm going to say like empathic nature, because there's a lot of empaths out there that this is what happens, it gets stuck, right? All of a sudden you feel totally aligned and then something shifts it and you're like, holy shit, what was that? Now I'm feeling fragmented, I'm feeling cloudy. Is there a way that you would say to decipher, that difference from like, this is actually an imprint in the field that actually has nothing to do with me. I just like, in essence, sucked or sponged that coherence in, right?
yeah.
Is there a way that you could suggest to our viewers to decipher or use discernment for what may be theirs or what might be something that has bridged into the field? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's probably different for each person, but I tend to just ask my guides, like my higher self, how it feels. I mean, I've literally been driving on not the 401, but a normal 2-lane highway, and just got a really, I just got this complete. I mean, it was definitely a feeling of incoherence, and I just pulled over to the side of the road, and like literally 3 cars went through the red light up ahead, and I just went, okay. And it was just a strong feeling. And at the time, it's easy to go, well, that was crazy, right? But and sometimes we don't even know why. It's just, you may, like in that case, I could actually see the effect. And there's other times where you just get this intuition, like this strong, strong feeling. And, you have a choice to either act on it or not. And you may not know what, like you may not see the outcome or even get confirmation on it. It's just I mean, I get that with when I do spirit fractals for people, um, I don't, I give the person their fractal, and then I see it as none of my business. So, I don't know what the impact is. I mean, some people share it with me, and I've had lots of people just absolutely, just blown away by it, and just get so much information from it. But I don't ask because it's not my journey, it's not my business, right? I see it as very, very private. And a side story to that, when we lived in Oakville, we were doing a lot of spirit fractals for a new age bookstore. And we had done one, actually, the lady kept opening it and reading the intuitives. And I thought, I see it as extremely personal. So I started wrapping them with more paper, more tape, making it harder and harder. And she just kept opening them. And then I had a special request where a mom wanted it done for her daughter. And I usually don't do it for under 18. And the girl was 13. I didn't tell Jen the person's age. I did the fractal and I gave it to Jen. And Jen did the intuitive. And afterwards, when I told her that it was just, a 13-year-old girl, it was the intuitive was a very strong warning. And the woman at the store opened it and read it and said, I can't give this I said, the process, I just bring through what I'm given. I don't judge it. I don't interfere. And so the mom came in, picked it up, and it was exactly what her daughter needed. So that was the last one I did for the store because it just didn't feel right to me, it was very personal, and it's that person's journey. It wasn't her journey, right? So
Crossing of boundaries.
yeah.
And speaking of the fractals, I remember when you gave me mine, I cried. I still cry when I look at it. Like it's a very, it's like for me anyways, it was a very emotional, and it still is, in like beautiful tears, not like I'm sad, it's like tears of, I don't know how to express it into words. So it is,
Yeah.
I can relate to like that impact or that feeling that comes through them, especially with the soul signatures. And can you actually talk into that a little bit? So if anyone watching this is interested in how to receive a soul, I want to call it signature, soul fractal, can you express how they would go about that process?
If they wanted to order one, you mean? Yeah, I have the website, spiritfractal.com, and you can order them through the website. There's a contact me page where you can just send me an email, and all I need is a request to do so and your permission to do so, and that starts the whole journey. So it's interesting that you talked about sort of the overwhelm of emotion when I mean, I get that so often with doing fractals for people. Um, I don't get as much. It's rare for me to get that emotional hit when I'm doing a fractal on, for example, coherence. Like if it's just a generic. When I was doing the Oracle deck, when I do it for personal people, so often I know I'm done because it's just the emotions come through and it's just overwhelming, and it's like, you end up with this. It's hard the feeling's hard to describe, but it's almost like a humbling awe. It's like, it's just this overwhelming wow. Yeah.
It is. It's
You're,
overwhelming in the best way.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're really, like you're in touch with divinity, like you are in direct communication at that time with not only the divinity within you, because you're able to channel that fractal for another human or being, but like, seeing probably the beauty of each individual as well through the fractal. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I do spend, my job is to stay out of the way, because I don't want to influence the outcome. So, and that was when I learned to channel. For me, it's like I go into a back room. I don't. When I was a kid, my parents had parties, and I'd be in my bedroom, and the door shut, and those walls, and you kind of hear a conversation, but you can't. And that's what it feels like when I channel. I go into a different room, and I just stay. I keep me out of it, so that the information that comes through is as clear and true as possible. And I do the same with fractals. In the beginning, there's a lot of doubt, and you're going, well, you get this strong intuition for a color or to know when you're done. And I'd be questioning it, and then now I no longer question it. I just let everything flow, and I just stay out of it. And that's to me, that's the most important thing is keeping it pure. It's
So you channel the fractal, and then your wife channels like the message that's affiliated with the fractal.
she does the intuitive writing. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So beautiful. I love that. So, I don't know, Brittany, how long, like, and Ferd also with, how long, I want to just check in with our timing and everything and see, because I feel like we could just keep on, keeping on. It's so, I mean, I feel like I have so many more questions. What I would love to, I mean, I wanted to speak about like, the light language that you began to channel, but I feel like that might end up being a really long conversation. But there was just one part of your book that I wanted, where it says language is a living architecture. And so I didn't know if you felt like you wanted to maybe, what do you mean by that?
So one of the things that actually the simplest way to put it is, Jen and I have had this discussion so many times where I was always hesitant to use like even the word God, because it has so many different connotations, so many different meanings in one word. And it can, when as soon as you say that word, everybody has their own idea of what that's supposed to be. And so for me, really, with Shaa'Vihra, what was the sort of the driving force was to have a language that is just vibration. It's purely an intended vibration, and not a communication or not a meaning. Each word, each mantra has meaning, but it's a vibrational meaning. So the one question I get a lot is on punctuation. How do you pronounce the words? And that's again very individual. It really should be felt by the user and not. So I have a whole bunch of sort of recordings to just to give people just as examples, but I don't want it to become this is how it's supposed to be said, because it's unique to every person. Like, it becomes a language where you really have to feel within you what the vibration, how it should feel to you, and that's what becomes the most important. I think the closest language to that is actually the ancient Hebrew, which was very much, it was a very geometric, very sacred language. And again, I think a lot of the meanings behind the original language has been lost because it's a very ancient language.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then the humans put their definitions on the words too. I think that's, really what you're saying is like, when we think of the word God, like that's such a layered word depending on your experience with religion, upbringing, all of these things. So it comes with so much almost baggage that it's not like clear because it comes with definitions that we've learned along the way, or even just affiliations to the word itself. So when you speak of the language or, how do you, do you call it light language that you would, or like it's divinity language or it's source language?
It's probably closer to source language, but it's a fractal language. Like it's
okay, a fractal language. I like that. That feels better. Then it is just the pure resonance of it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I use it. I mean, I've started using it. Well, since I've been writing all the books on it, I've been using it a lot, and it's as an example, Jen had a kink in her neck. She couldn't release it. She couldn't turn her head for weeks, and without telling her, I just one night just developed a mantra and just quietly. Nothing was ever said out loud. I just placed my hands on her neck and heart chakra, and just using. All I did was get her body to recognize her own spiral, and because it's impossible for me to heal her. That's impossible, So it's just giving her body that space to heal itself. And in the morning when she woke up, all the neck pain was gone, And so it wasn't anything I did. It was just her giving her body that space to move through it, and connecting it back to her original spiral and the connection to the spiral. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
feel it. It's like, and I mean, like, I think that I totally understand that. And I know that, you open up space for healing to occur. Like, I know that for sure to be something that happens. It's just beautiful to hear somebody else describe it in the way of that you wanted to remind her of her spiral, which is in essence, I just think that's a beautiful way to describe it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Boy, so I'm just taking everything in. So beautiful. And I have actually, funny, as you were talking, I don't know how the camera works right now with having everyone on, but I want to show the Shaa'Vihra just so everyone can see what that book looks like. And funny, as Ferd was talking there, this was the page that opens. And that's one of the fractals here. And this coherence is the traveler and the spiritual path. Sorry, the traveler and the spiral path. So the bridge into the language, deeper structure. And that's kind of what you can imagine to connect to, just as a small part in this book, along with, like Ferd was communicating, the different frameworks for the words and the frequencies of each coherence to connect in for your own personal journeying and healing, alchemy, however you want to attune to it. Kara, I feel like there's so many things, right, to connect with. So how do we feel just to bridge into a little bit of the books? Anything that Ferd wants to share?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Ferd, what do you want to share with your books? Like, I have 6 of your books here, so where do you want to start?
Hey, my personal favorite is the Lucid Dreamer, only because it's really about waking up in your life, right? Like, our waking life is the real, that's the real dream. I mean, I really believe when we sleep, that's our mind playing in a virtual sandbox where we can work through things without gravity, without all the rules that that we're restricted to here. Like you can fly in your dreams, so you can uncover a lot more and just experiment in different, even different timelines. But this is the actual dream that we need to become lucid in. This is the everyday life. If it's being lucid in that and being able to actually change your outcome and change to manifest within that, right? I know when I wrote Shaa'Vihra, the real I guess the underlying was providing a vehicle to manifest, whether it be um abundance, whether it be more love, more peace, health. It's just giving tools to just make it easier to manifest, right? And I mean, I've done manifesting the hard way a few times. I don't know if I ever shared, but when we lived up north, I did a lot of journeying. And one journey, and it was so vivid. I end up in the middle of a council of elders, and they were all shocked I was there, and I was shocked I was there. And one of the elders turned to me and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I want to manifest $30,000." And that was like, there was a whole bunch of things there that should, but I was, naive. And it was a 30 days of complete roller coaster. Like, our house got hit by lightning. It fried all my Ethernet stuff on the computer, all the communications, like, a hot tub got knocked offline. It was chaos. But at the end of that month, I'd actually earned exactly $30,000. Yeah, and I remember turning
After
to
the
Jen, go,
chaos.
it works, but that was a hard price to pay. It wasn't sustainable. I couldn't do that every month. Yeah, so anyway, so yeah, from that I've just, it's about doing it with ease and grace. Yeah.
The two key words, right?
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful to touch into though with the books as well, because again, it's like learning to master your frequency for that attraction instead of sometimes we put intentions out there, but they're actually not of our highest good. And it's like I always come back to you can't bullshit the universe, right? Like the
Right.
universe knows your intention behind your action and it can read through what that underlying coherence is, even if we can't, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and your title under the Lucid Dreamer, the Architect Awakens, that's powerful in itself because it's again that awareness of how you are that structure, right?
Yeah.
And what are you creating in that within yourself and within the dream weave? This is the dream weaver as well as the lucid dreamer. Show those there. And
Quantum.
Ferd, so sorry, Kara?
You said Dreamweaver, which I thought was cute because it made me think of the song Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times I've called that book the Dreamweaver? So for whatever reason, I'm sorry for my head it's processing that. I'm merging them.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Ferd, you're giving our Blue Lettuce members a copy, a PDF file of one of these books, right?
Yeah.
Which one is that?
Which one do you want?
Oh,
Ooh.
right on.
Kara?
So there'll be a copy for the Blue Lotus members in the forum, which is beautiful. Thank you, Ferd. And then we'll make sure that underneath this chat that we'll have all of your links too, because I have a feeling that you're going to have some reach outs for fractals. But we'll make sure that all of that is linked in. And I would love to have another conversation with you where we can really break down the whole like language. I want to really get into the fractal language more. I think that would be really beautiful in ways that we could, use that fractal language to, discover our inner spiral as well. I think that would be really powerful for people to really understand the methods and ways that we can do that so that we then can become, more aware of the lucid dreamer and, within ourselves and understand that. So we'll have to figure out another month for you to come back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. So I think that that's a beautiful place to complete, even though I want to talk to you more, but we will make sure all of those links are in the description. And thank you, Ferd. I really appreciate you taking this time. That was really good conversation. I just feel like I have just way more questions now, but that's good. It'll give me some time to think them through.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We're
Anything
so grateful.
Britt, anything else on your end?
So grateful. Just like you, it's so easy to just continue to connect in with all the aspects of the books and connecting to all the little pieces within our own curiosities. I think, Kara, once we finish, maybe we both finish both the books, then we'll have them back in. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Ferd.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for
Yeah, I appreciate that.
too.
You've got this
And
week on your end you've got this as far as all the technical things right now on your end?
oh yeah, I'm going to close up. So keep posted, everyone, for all those links below this beautiful recording. And we look forward to connecting with you soon.
Thanks.
Bye for now. Thank you, Ferd. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you.
Bye.